Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to another edition of Live at 4:45. Hope you guys are doing good. And just wanted to say good morning. It's snowing like crazy outside here in Montana. And, I went to bed last night wondering what I was going to talk about this morning. But I went to bed and I watched a little bit of the movie Gandhi. And I woke up this morning thinking about that as well, and just his life and his work and his ability to let go of self and really focus on the greater good for all. And a powerful story. And it made me also think of another story that is an illustration of that. And I love the story because it's a story of climbing a mountain, and I love climbing mountains. And there were three men who decided they wanted to climb this mountain, and they decided that it was going to be a competition. They decided that whoever got to the top of the mountain was going to get this recognition and this prize and this it was just kind of this achievement that they were all going for. But they all had different levels of experience. There was within this group of three a mountain climber. That's what he had did. He had climbed all the 14s. He had he was a professional. And then there was a man who was extremely wealthy, and he had paid for individuals to get him to the top of many peaks. He had flown to the top of peaks with his famous helicopter, and then there was a quiet, humble man who had spent his time with his family, spent his time with his community, spent his time serving, and he had never had the time to go on these mountain adventures. But he had carved out this opportunity because he had heard that getting to the top of this mountain, there was a glorious view. There was a almost out of worldly experience by reaching this top of this particular mountain. And he decided he wanted to go. So they started off, and they hiked, and they were running, and they were being competitive getting up there, and they were all neck and neck for much of the climb. And the man who was experienced was surprised by the fact that these other two who weren't quite were sticking right with him. And then a nasty storm blew in, and they weren't doing quite as well. They all slowed down. They were all having to hunker down. The winds were blowing, the snow was blowing, and yet they were still all kind of neck and neck. And all of a sudden, the one man, the man who had flown to top of mountains, the man who was very well off, the man who had been successful in life, slipped off the trail, and he became wounded to the point where he could not go on. And momentarily, all three men were there. And the mountain man said, "You know what? I've got to get to the top. I always get to the top. I have never not got to the top, so I must go on. But I will come back, and I will help you once I've got to the top, and once I've checked off my achievement. I will come back and help you." And he took off and headed up the trail by himself. And the quiet man, the humble man, the man who had never been to the top of the mountain, realized that his dream might not happen right now, that he might not make it to the top. And but he knew that they were closer to the top than they were to the bottom, and he knew that if at top of the mountain he'd heard that there was a hut, a place that could get this individual who was hurt, this man who was wounded, out of the weather and possibly survive. And so he said, "You know what? I'm going to attempt to help this man to the top, to reach this hut so we can get him out of the weather." And so he got down off the trail, and he grabbed onto this man, and he realized that this man could not make it up the mountain on his own power. And he realized that he was going to have to carry this man. And so with great effort and with great pain, he was able to get this man on his back, and slowly and painfully he inched his way through the storm, through the snow, through the wind, up this mountain, step by painful step. And finally, He looked up when he thought that he could not go on any further, and he saw the ridge, and he saw the hut, and he knew that they were going to make it. He knew that they were going to be okay. And just as they were about to reach the door of the hut, there on the side of the trail, in the snow, still and frozen, was the great mountain climber. So close, but he had not made it. Alone on the mountain, he had perished. And in that moment, this humble, this quiet, this unassuming individual realized that the only reason that he had been able to make it to the top was because he had been willing to stoop down, to reach out, and to help another human being find the hut. By carrying this man, by struggling, by painfully and arduously taking each step, one step after the other step, but by having this man on his shoulders, he had exerted energy, he had created warmth, he had been able to sustain life because life was in helping others. His life was spared by his willingness to help save the life of another. And I believe that's a powerful illustration because too often we get sucked into our own goals, our own desires, our own dreams. And yet so often in life, our greatest aspiration, our most glorious moments come when we let go of self and grasp on to humanity. Today may we look to the needs of others. May we search out how we can help others. Because I guarantee you, when we are helping others, in essence, we are helping ourselves. Hope you have a wonderful day, whatever you're at, wherever you're at, whatever you're doing. Love it, live it, make it